Synth pop was becoming increasingly popular and increasingly grand. OMD would enjoy 3 top 10 hits in 1982, 2 of which were about Joan of Arc.
We were quite intellectual, you know. Pompous, stuck up our own arses, I guess you could say. You know, we were going on Top of the Pops with Bonnie Langford and Elton John and Cliff Richard, amongst others, and we were playing a song that was in waltz time that started with 45 seconds of distortion and had no chorus and had a mellotron playing what sounded like bagpipes.
Well, explain how it works.
Well, actually, it's fairly straightforward. It's a musical computer, and as you know, Eric, the right hand is lead instruments with a choice of 18 different ones, and the left hand is rhythms in this half and backgrounds in this half, and it's all been fed onto hundreds of tape tracks.
The mellotron is a very, very early sampler before samplers went digital. It was a very analogue thing.
Here's a French accordion with a Viennese waltz.
It was a nightmare to use on stage. We were playing in this tiny town in the middle of France, and the mellotron was completely out of tune because all the town were drawing the power down so much, cooking. The motor wouldn't spin fast enough.
Thank you. Well, David isn't a musician, as you know, but I have a professional pianist here who can really show you what the mellotron can do.
The number of people who thought that the equipment wrote the song for you. Well, anybody could do it with the same equipment that you've got. Fuck off. It's all played by hand. Believe me, if there was a button on a synth or a drum machine that said hit single, I would have pressed it as often as anybody else would have. But there isn't. It was all written by real human beings, and it was all played by hand, to the point where Paul and I thought we were going to get arthritis in our fingers from playing bass lines like that for hours on end.
Between 1981 and 1983, synth pop reigned supreme. Our charts were chock full of duos and groups who set aside changing the world in favour of making it with a synth on top of the pops.
Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to abuse you.
You've got to remember that it was the first time ever that someone could sit and make a record on their own. Eurythmics came along and they did, I remember they did Sweet Dreams in the basement. You know, they recorded it on an 8-track tape machine. Annie sang Sweet Dreams into a little Shure microphone, holding it in her hand, you know, and won a Grammy for it.
And in 1982, along came a song that turned the alienation of the original synth pioneers into a full-blown epic.
Our jocks would score like one of the biggest synth pop hits ever, called Vienna, which has that, you know, total fetishism of Middle Europe. You know, Vienna is the Habsburg Empire. It's, you know, the romance of Central Europe.
Freezing breath on a window pane, lying and waiting.
The movies we were watching and the music we were listening to at the time, all coming out of Europe, and the history that Europe had, you know, Vienna being this beautifully romantic, you know, city, this beautiful place. And you put all that together and you've got this fantastic image. You've got this wonderful... I'd never been to Vienna when we wrote the song. You know, I didn't know anything about Vienna. You try putting that down on a piece of paper that you're going to write a song that's a 4.5 minute long electronic ballad that speeds up in the middle with a viola solo thrown in. It doesn't equate. It doesn't work. But at the time when you're young and, you know, naivety is a wonderful thing.
Not to be outdone by their English synth-pop derivatives, Kraftwerk would return in 1982 to score their only #1 single success, cashing in with a song that they'd originally recorded in 1978.
With the model that was in England to be a hit, that was a complete different story. We didn't expect it ourselves.
She's a model and she's looking good.
The reason was the following. We had already a single to be played on the radio in England, and it was Computer World. And the man of the EMI London house, he didn't know what to put on the B-side. And he thought, and he thought, and he thought, maybe 2 days longer. And suddenly he had the great idea to put the model from the last album, The Man Machine, on the B-side. And then they sent the single to the radios. And 80% of the radios played the B-side.
She's going out to nightclubs drinking just champagne.
By 1983, Britain had entered an era of conspicuous consumption and greed that made the late 70s seem like a foreign country. It would provide inspiration for Depeche Mode's new chief songwriter.
The handshake seals the contract. From the contract, there's no turning back. The turning point of a career in Korea.
The early 80s were just a terrible time in Britain. And I was young and impressionable, and that was really when I first felt like I was sort of writing from the heart, really.
Grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves. After all, the grabbing hands, grab all they can, all for themselves. After all, it's a competitive world.
Around the time of Construction Time Again, samplers had just really come out. So, we were just, it was just a whole revelation to us. We were just going out and, sort of like smashing pieces of metal with sledgehammers, raiding the kitchen drawer for all the utensils to make percussion sounds, just anything we could get our hands on.
We've got this vague idea at the moment, which was used on the demo. We've got this pebble, which we got from the mud.
Yeah, look, white spots, hairy, stinging nails.
Anyway, the idea is to roll the pebble on this piece of metal along here, this window frame, thus making this sort of sound.
Construction Time Again really started to see us form, as a basis of what we are today.
That was a lot better. Anyway, and the idea is to take that sequence and to make an interesting rhythm out of it, and to sequence it all through the song, so people dance.
Depeche Mode pioneered their new sampler-based sound in London's Shoreditch.
In those days, Shoreditch was there was not a soul around, but now, of course, with Hoxton, etc., it's sort of like the trendy place to be. But it wasn't when we were at the Garden Studios. It was not a soul to be seen.
Tell the Queen Construction Time Again. What is it this time?
I remember there was one sound in particular that was us actually hitting a piece of corrugated iron that was the side of a building site, and the sample sort of went like, "Oi!" And there was like the site foreman,
It's a lot. 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 It's a lot.
We seemed in the 80s really to be doing a one-band crusade for electronic music, against the music press that was overwhelmingly rock-based.
We would often do interviews with journalists, and we'd have a big arguments because they just didn't consider electronic music to be real music.
There's a new game we like to play, you see. The game with added reality.
accused of being, at certain times, of being like a very subversive pop band. And I do think that we did get away with, some stuff that was, probably risque for the radio just because we used it in a pop context. In our early career, I mean, there are things like, Master and Servant and stuff.
Some of the reviews, they were unbelievably vicious. I mean, you just couldn't, real hatred for the band. Real hatred. I don't know why. It wasn't British, really.
A journalist once said that, the music will appeal to alienated youth everywhere and Germans.